Hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure. Sure.
Okay, ma'am. A greatest equalizer in the world is education, and technology is the greatest amplifier of education. Good evening to everyone. A very warm welcome to day 3 to all the participants joining us for the day 3 bootcamp EdTech Acceleration Program organized by the Academic Innova World and powered by Indian Science, Technology and Engineering Facilities MAP. Academic Innova World is a research hub. It's a research hub driven innovation, technical excellence, and intellectual property creation. Founded in 2017 as a YouTube channel for aerospace enthusiasts, it now holds an MSME registered STEAM research center organized across India. And in the upcoming World Space Week, we are going to achieve a world record. Unlike conventional academies, our academy operate a dedicated R&D cell collaborating with researchers, scientists and industry mentors and other candidates, a rare offering in the education sector. Recently, Academic Innova World has been declared as India's first private research and innovation hub, which was featured by Republic News and Gujarat Journal. Our Educational Technology Day, we celebrate not just the device and software, but the powerful bridge they build between curiosity and knowledge. May we continue to harness innovation to create equitable, engaging, and limitless learning environments for every mind. A very warm welcome to today's guest speaker, Anita Singh, AGM, content, dev- content developer, BIG, VIBGYOR group of schools.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are delighted to have with us today a dynamic mentor, Anita Singh. Is an educator whose 18-year career is defined by profound commitment to meaningful learning. She believes education's true purpose is to speak curiosity and transfer students into lifelong learners. As a seasoned practitioner, Anita champions the vital importance of meeting children at their actual level of understanding, advocating for unconventional paths to empower every student. She recognized assessment not as a tool for judgment but as a powerful driver for growth, focusing on developing essential skills. Overall information, Anita's vision is collaborative and inclusive to create an education system where together we ensure every learner not only succeeds but truly thrives. Her work is a testament to the power of inspired student-centered teaching. Today we are really glad to have you with us, madam. Without further delay, let's learn and hear from your today's guest. Bridging the digital divide, EdTech for inclusive and equitable learning. The virtual stage is yours, ma'am. We are eager to learn from your insights. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'll share my presentation and then get started. Is the presentation visible to you? Right. Sure. Yeah. Just a minute. Can you see it now? Complete entire screen. Just a Now, are you able to see it? Okay. So today's topic, bridging the digital divide, EdTech for inclusive and equitable learning, is something that we have been kind of as educators been discussing for years. Okay. No doubt there was a digital revolution since a very long time. 2015 was the year when there was a push from Narendra Modi, we know our respected Prime Minister, for a digital Bharat. And after that, during the pandemic, I think there was a very big boost uh, only because of the need, you know. At that point of time, it did not remain a kind of a choice for us to choose whether we want to take the digital route or not, whether there is merit or demerit in it, but it had become almost like a requirement. During the pandemic, we could either connect virtually through the digital platform, or we could choose to remain locked within our homes. Okay, so somewhere the digital, I would say, revolution fastened up big time during the pandemic period. Now, this was also the period when the edtech journey, in itself became really profound. And when I say edtech journey became profound, all the schools again had to use edtech solutions to reach out to their students so that learning doesn't stop for them, right? Now, when they were doing it, it was happening parallelly in urban areas, in rural areas. Urban areas where students had access to the digital devices. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the schools had shut down. They were required, to connect for their lectures online using either a smartphone or a laptop, whatever was available to them. At the same time, the same kind of thing was happening for the, for in the rural areas as well. Now, over there, it somewhere kind of remained dependent on the availability of the devices. And this is where the story or this entire debate about the digital divide comes into play. So, if we try to unpack the topic, if we try to understand what digital divide is all about, I would say that there are four layers to it. Accessibility is something that we all know digital divide is definitely about, whether every person, okay, whether living in a rural area or in an urban area, has access to a device or not. One is having a device, and the other is definitely having connectivity as well. It was recently that I was interacting with some educators, and we were discussing that, okay, what is happening in the school, what type of infrastructure do they have, and things like that. They told me that they have access to the device. There are two children using one system. And accordingly, we got started discussing that, okay, how can we leverage technology? And it was only later that we discovered that, okay, electricity remains a challenge there sometimes. Okay, so while a particular person or student may have access to the device, if the connectivity is not there, whether in terms of internet or electricity itself is missing, access is completely denied. That's the very first layer of digital divide when we talk about. Okay, the second is in terms of skill sets. When I say skill sets, I mean that do the students or the users, and when I'm using the word user, I'm trying to refer to all the stakeholders who are required to use the digital devices or technology for that matter in an ecosystem for either teaching or learning, or maybe for reporting or gauging what is the development. Okay, I will elaborate on this particular aspect. So, when we talk about digital literacy in students, the very first aspect is that, okay, are the students aware how to go about using the device which has been given to them? So, if they are using maybe a smartphone, do they know how to go about, entering into the classrooms, accessing the learner material which has been provided to them, or maybe submitting their assignments? When it comes to a teacher, right from the very simple thing of making a presentation, for example, how to ensure that, okay, students are not being disruptive, they are not using tools, to maybe annotate on the screen when she is teaching. Okay, all such kind of disruptions which are possible, putting students in breakout rooms if it is required, all those kind of interfaces that she may require, she is equipped to handle that. Okay, so when we talk about the skills, we talk about the students and teachers for sure. At the same time, there are, stakeholders like the school leadership team. Now, the school leadership team also should be having the infrastructure in place to leverage technology, or, I would say the digital platform in such a way that they are able to monitor how the classes are being, conducted, monitor whether students are really attending, what is the percentage of students attending the classrooms. If at all the turnout is less, then how to reach out to the parents, and especially in a scenario where there is, asynchronous session happening. Okay, and the next part is the parents angle, the last stakeholder, but a very, very important stakeholder in the ecosystem. Okay, so when it comes to parents, how do they kind of connect with the educators, with the schools, to figure out whether they are kind of able to follow what the school is doing, how their child is doing, what next do they need to do, and things like that. Okay, so that's a whole skill layer. Yeah. The third one is usage. Now, when I say usage, this is a little advanced aspect of the digital divide, debate, I should say. One is that, okay, we have discussed the basic, whether they have the access to device, connectivity, electricity, etc. Do they have the skills, to use it? And when we say skills, skills by all the stakeholders. Okay, and the next part is the usage aspect, how the students especially, or the teachers for that matter, are using the technology which is available to them. Is it a meaningful usage, or it is just being used maybe like a tip of the iceberg? We know that, an iceberg is visible only by 10%, right? The 90% is hidden. And similarly, when it comes to the impact that I would say EdTech platforms or tools can have, it's profound. It is like a deep ocean. But if we use it only like a TV, for example, we know how to log in, log out. We know how to play something, listen to it. Versus a scenario where we are able to use the tools in a more engaging manner, depending on the needs of the session which is being conducted. There's a huge difference there. So when the smart boards are put up in a classroom, okay, is it only being used to flash a presentation, or it is being used for features which are way beyond that? For example, smart boards these days also have a feature of recording the classroom. Okay, so I consider the fact that, okay, I record my sessions. Of course, there are other tools also which will be required to make this possible. But yes, being able to record the session, being able to share it with the students, annotate in the flip books if at all it is required, zoom a particular diagram, for instance, and discuss that in detail, bookmark certain aspects and share with the students, and lot of such features which come in a smart board. Okay, not only a smart board, when we look at features where teachers are using a particular platform to assign the assignments, how much active they can be in that space is going to depend on the fact that how aware are they about the user tools. Okay, how confident are they in using them. Okay, and the next aspect of the innovation, I would say, angle is that are they only using the content as a consumer, okay, or they are leveraging technology to innovate as well. And this is a very big aspect which is coming in these days, where schools and colleges are insisting that, okay, we introduce, computational thinking, we introduce, for example, ICT as a subject, robotics as a thing, STEM education, there's a lot of thrust on that. Okay, and they want their students to get into that space of designing. So there can be a passive consumption of the content, and there can be an innovation angle also to it, where children not only consume knowledge using the technology, but also kind of, get into things like app development, or maybe immersing into various other aspects of it. Okay, so that's the innovation angle. So when we talk about digital divide, I think by now you're very clear that digital divide means that when the users are using it, okay, is there equity in terms of accessibility, in terms of their digital literacy and the skill sets or competence which the users have, various stakeholders in this case, how they are using it, whether the usage is minimal or it is massive and really, meaningful. And the last part is, are they only a passive consumer of it, or they are using it to innovate? Okay, so these are very, very important four layers of the digital divide, which we generally observe. Okay, now if I elaborate a little further on this particular aspect, access divide, the infrastructure gap, if we talk about, I have kind of elaborated. I said that, okay, people may have devices. Okay, now if we look at this particular slide, it kind of presents the infrastructure gap in a nutshell. Okay, you may see that, okay, in the remotest of the places, or in the countries which are not so developed, you will still find people using a smartphone. They do have technology, at their disposal. So definitely 95% global mobile, broadband coverage is something that we can boast about as humanity. But when it comes to the access or affordability, okay, that is where, I would say, the challenge lies. We see there are millions of people who remain offline. Okay, there are still so many people who don't get equal access, or they are not able to afford a particular, type of device which takes them beyond the mode of communication. So this is there is a huge access device. And when I talk about access divide, this is not only global, that we kind of face as educators. These were common scenes during the pandemic, especially because people were not prepared for it, and they were kind of caught off guard, I would say. There were so many stories where teachers were seen taking classes, sitting in remote places where they were getting network, you know not having that facility at home where they can be on screen, for example, taking sessions from an auto rickshaw, I remember. Okay, these were the success stories of people who did not give up. Okay, people who still made learning possible either for themselves or maybe kind of reaching out to their students from wherever remote place they were in. Similarly, of course, there is a digital divide which comes in with, I should say, gender as well, the social sector as well, right? After that, there is a divide in terms of skills when it comes to digital literacy or training. Teachers also, for that matter, it's a very, very sad scenario. Though I would say the government is really taking a lot of initiative, a lot of pushes coming on the fact that, okay, how can we equip our teachers in getting trained, getting skilled to use technology to optimum? But at the moment, definitely, 60% of the teachers can be kind of called proficient. Okay, there's a very, very big percentage of people who are still not able to use technology in an optimum manner. Okay, so this is something that does remain as a concern. And this, when I say, it is approximately 3.6 billion people who kind of lack digital skills, which is as basic as digital literacy. Okay, that remains elusive. It's something that we really need to kind of consider when we talk about bridging this particular gap. Okay, next comes the usage divide. So if we look at the usage divide, engagement quality is also something that becomes a challenge. Children, who are, I would say, in remote areas especially, they fail to have a meaningful usage, interactive learning, or we talk about skill development, for example, or an ability to express themselves creatively, okay, is something that we see in the urban areas that way, and not so much in the remote areas. Okay, so good schools, schools which have technology at their disposal when it comes to providing infrastructure, or their parents also can kind of afford it. It remains at a stage where children are able to use it meaningfully. Okay, it is definitely interactive there. Children get that facility. There is a lot of skill development that happens. There is a lot of creative expression also. If we take example of schools like schools which are IB, for example, CI, for example, these children, students studying in grade 8, or I should say grade 4 as well, submit podcasts that they have made. For example, they would make a short documentary on a particular topic that they have selected. So here, the expression is way different from what it can be in a school, or maybe a government school, or maybe a small, a private school in a remote area. Okay, so we see this particular divide where usage either remains at surface or the creative expression is really at peak. Passive consumption, I think I have already spoken about, where educational benefits are not sufficiently reaped because they remain as passive consumers of information. Innovation divide. Now, this is where we talk about creating the future. The government is also pushing a lot. I don't know if you remember back in 2012 or so, it was in news that there were two children who took help from their father. They were very, very keen on learning coding. So coding has become a buzzword now. Okay, but back in 2012, 11, these were not the years when people were talking about coding, and they never thought that, okay, children can code. So these, I remember, I had read it in the news. These were students from Hyderabad, studying in Blibong High School, where their father was a coder. Children showed interest in learning what he was doing, and the father also kind of nurtured their skill in coding. Okay, now at that point of time, it was a very, very big thing. I remember it was big time in news. Children also, started their own company. Those two children had got around and given lectures in IIMs as well. This is a very big news at that point of time. Okay, so somewhere, being at that stage, 2011, 12, where it was a surprise that young children can code, young children can innovate. Today, when we look at the scenario in the current times, this has changed drastically. There is no denying to it. But yes, there is still a long way to go, is something that I want to say. So one is definitely the consumer path, which I have already spoken about. I've mentioned that, okay, we can be passive consumers of technology, where the skill development is very, very limited. And we talk about a scenario where we say that, okay, 21st century skill, or we talk about 21st century belongs to innovators. It belongs to people who can solve problems. It belongs to people who can kind of think of new solutions for the issues which persist for years. Okay, technology is something that we definitely have to leverage. And here comes the innovation divide. There are very few who have access to platforms which help students to learn programming, which help students to learn designing, or learn innovation and entrepreneurship in that manner. Now, this is definitely something which is coming up as a strong recommendation from CBSE. If you look at NEP Move, if you look at what vocational subjects are they kind of pushing, you will see that they are introducing these things as vocational subjects. Okay, so there's definitely a push on that aspect. Okay, but yes, if I look at the percentage, the overall percentage, the majority of the percentage still remains on the consumer side and not so much on the, I would say, innovator side. And that's the fourth angle which I told you about, the digital divide. Now, we talk about sustainable development goal. This is something, again, when we talk about the new education policy, we talk about the kind of reforms which have been happening through NEP and NCF. If you have read it, you would know that in the NCF also, there's a huge push on ensuring that students are kind of exposed to the sustainable development goals. So when we design curriculum here, back here in our office, for example, we ensure that in different subjects, when we are dealing with different aspects, we integrate the sustainable development goals. Now, one of those goals is quality education. Okay, and quality education, when we talk about this particular aspect, talks about inclusive and equitable education. Now, what do we mean by inclusive and equitable education? I'll detail, but at the very surface level, inclusion is all about ensuring that irrespective of the divide that might exist in the learners, and when I say irrespective of the divide that may exist in the learners, think about the kind of social strata they belong to, the kind of learning disabilities which may be there in students. Think about their, I would say, access to the technology which is required. All those kind of aspects which kind of deprive them from the required opportunity or giving them a fair chance. Okay, when I say disability, we know that, okay, there are children who are extremely blind, bright, but have some kind or the other kind of, I would say, developmental issue, either in the form of ADHD, autism, physical, I would say, challenges like blindness, or, any other kind of challenge that children face, because of which they're not seen as regular students in the classroom. Sometimes they don't even get admissions in these schools. So these are the children who kind of lose that equal opportunity and fair outcome, meaningful participation, which can happen otherwise in a school. Okay, so inclusive and equitable education is one thing which is a very strong thrust of SDG 4. The next is that, okay, there is quality education materials, and this comes in here when we talk about schools, we talk about colleges, for instance, and over there, we consider the fact that, okay, what we are providing is meaningful, is unbiased, is exposing children to content which helps them to think critically. Now, over here, I would like to kind of point out this revolution, the AI revolution, which has happened. I don't know, how much of thought have you given about it, but go back to that era when there was a time when all of us remembered phone numbers at the back of our fingers. Okay, today, fast forward to today, how many phone numbers do we remember? A very, very, I would say, surface level example, which will help us kind of relate when we don't engage with something at a deeper level, when we don't take a lot of effort to memorize something or engage with it, it somewhere, becomes a challenge in terms of long-term retention. And there was an MIT study just recently, 2025, as far as I remember, March or so, where they mentioned that this entire AI revolution which has happened and the way it is being used by the students, by the teachers, is somewhere taking them towards a cognitive decline. And when I say cognitive decline, it means children are failing to engage critically with the content which has been given. So AI, while it can make the life of an educator very easy because things can be ready very quickly without much effort. Gone are the days when a teacher will have to do a lot of preparation, whether at school or college level. I want case studies for my students at college level, for instance. I can very well generate it using AI today, and a scenario where I was required to browse through variety of research papers, engage with it, and in the process stumble upon a lot of other things which were not a direct search that way. So this quality education material, when we talk about, one is that, okay, definitely the AI revolution has brought in speed, but at the same time, we really don't know what we are getting is quality education material or not. Okay, is there any bias in the material that we are getting? And when I'm saying bias, I don't know, again, if you have come across these experiments which happened during US elections when Kamala Harris and, President Trump were fighting for the presidential, poll. And at that point of time, there were kind of experiments which were done using Alexa. Okay. And not only Alexa, a lot of other platforms also, where some type of questions regarding one presidential candidate were completely avoided. Whereas for the other candidate, details which were largely negative were available and were shared. Okay. Now there is a bias. Okay. Similarly, we know that, okay, how AI learns. It learns from the material which is available. If at all, in any way, the material is leading to, not intentionally, sometimes unintentionally as well, is leading to some kind of bias, then the children are, of course, exposed to it. So, as educators, it's very, very important that we are evaluating the quality of educational material which is being provided to students. While we are getting it very quickly, it can also lead to a kind of a divide. It can also lead to a kind of a handicap if not guarded closely. And a third is definitely that, okay, are we using, when we talk about quality education, are we using the teaching learning process or the material to kind of kindle curiosity in students, to kind of kindle that lifelong learning, aspiration in students? Are we transforming them in curious learners who would continue to learn during their professional life as well? Or, now I've got a job and I'm kind of satisfied and sorted. Okay, I don't need to keep, I would say, upgrading as far as my knowledge and skill sets are concerned. What are we transforming our students into? So there's a thrust on that aspect as well. The Sustainable Development Goal is about quality education, and quality education which is inclusive and equitable, which is very much the topic of today's, I would say, lecture. Okay, I would like to unpack it a little more for you. When we say digital divide and EdTech for equitable and inclusive learning, what do we mean by it? I think till now, I have kind of given some perspective about ensuring what fairness and opportunities would mean. Okay? And that would imply that a child, irrespective of the geography, whether we talk about geography of the country, where these are children who are in remote areas of northeast to south, or maybe in the north somewhere, or in the metropolitan cities, which are a hub of knowledge, and of course access to technology is also very very easy. Okay, second comes the gender aspect, which I had kind of touched upon earlier. Okay, so the gender aspect, definitely when we say equitable, are we ensuring that okay, both boys and girls, in irrespective of the area or the social strata they belong to, have access to technology or digital devices, or in terms of skills as well for that matter? Socioeconomic status, is it anywhere becoming a hindrance, or it is contributing in making it equitable for the students? And then comes, of course, ability. Okay, so are we ensuring that okay, we are investing ourselves enough in educating both boys and girls, men and women, in using technology and thus being fair in that aspect? The next one is level playing field. Okay, and when I say level playing field, it is about equity. Now, equity is not about offering same kind of facility or same kind of infrastructure. There's a difference between equality and equity. While equality would mean distribute something, the same stuff in the same quantity maybe to everybody, equity would mean look at their need and accordingly distribute it. Okay. And here, when we talk about equitable, we emphasize on equity. We need to see what is the background of my learner. We need to see what is the requirement of my learner based on maybe the requirement of the place, for example, where they are located, or it is something where they don't have access. A very the first point that I made, that if at all they are really kind of based in a place where we don't have access to electricity so much, then how do we provide the infrastructure in such a manner that the child is still able to equitably use it? Okay, so that's the next aspect of it. um, if I talk about the next aspect, which is inclusive, inclusive here would mean the dream of having no learner left behind. And when I say no learner left behind, we talk about irrespective of the kind of barriers that may exist. These barriers may be in the form of disability, it could be in the form of language, it could be in the form of culture or learning differences. I'm a child who learns in a different manner altogether as compared to my peer. Okay, is technology being leveraged for it? Okay, so we know about Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, for example. Is technology kind of ensuring that different types of learners can be engaged in learning? Similarly, what about children, who are disabled, are either impaired in terms of their listening senses or their sense of sight, for instance? Is there a provision to include such kind of learners? Is there any sensitivity to ensure that, okay, people who are not very I would say, great in terms of their command over the language. And language, when I say English, for instance, because that's largely the language of communication internationally. Do we have provision to ensure that the material is available to them in their mother tongue? And NEP again over here emphasizes that we give enough, thrust on leveraging mother tongue for learning, and not only in the lower grades, but also for colleges and university education. Okay. So whether for the love of the language, which is my mother tongue, or because I could not have access to good education, or I should say, good, teachers in my early days, because of which my English competency is, something which is not developed sufficiently. Do I have an alternative to learn it in Hindi or Kannada or in Malayalam or maybe, in Gujarati for that matter? Okay, so bridging that language divide and making it inclusive for all the learners in the language that they want. Then comes, of course, the culture. Is the culture becoming anywhere a barrier? And learning differences I have already kind of touched upon. Okay, so ensuring that, okay, it is inclusive and there is no learner left behind because of any kind of barrier that the child may have faced for that matter. The next is definitely a diverse representation. And when we say diverse representation, we mean that, okay, what about the learning resources which are made available to them, okay, based on their varied backgrounds and experiences? Okay, are they conducive or not? Okay, is the material being provided way above the requirement of a child, who is not over there? Is there any scope of ensuring that, okay, if I have lagged behind, technology can be leveraged to bring me at par with my peers? Can there be a scope of that? And the next one, of course, is universal design of learning. This is popularly known as UDL. And UDL is all about ensuring that all kinds of learners, okay, not just the average students, but yes, all kind of, whether they are bright or they are the ones who are special children, maybe, okay, the teaching methods and the content is kind of made inclusive for these children. And here comes the point on making things kind of inclusive for the children. And when I say inclusive, I mean, are we differentiating it to ensure that, okay, all my children can be taken along? So that's very, very important. And that is what inclusiveness over there means. Now, if I put SDG 4 and Indian vision or education vision together, okay, we know that, okay, SDG 4 talks about inclusive and equitable quality education. And there has been, and a push, I would say, where we're talking about Digital India, the 2015 campaign that I spoke about, okay, where I would say measures were taken in different aspects of life. We see how, with what type of comfort do we use digital devices and platforms. There was a time when digitized payments were introduced, and we felt that, okay, it will be very difficult. People in remote places, people maybe, in areas which are out of network, maybe, or should I say out of network, or maybe at a high altitude, may not get network. How will they utilize, the digital pathways, etc., payment gateways, etc.? And today the scenario is very different. Right from a chelawala to, a very high-end restaurant that you are in, or maybe to a shopping mall, you can choose whether you want to make your payments using your credit card or GPay or any other platform for that matter. Okay, so there has been a systematic push, for Digital India. NEP 2020 kind of reinforced it after 5 years again, that we need to leverage technology for learning. We need to leverage technology for higher personalization based on the needs of the children, their skill sets and competencies. How do we leverage technology to ensure that our students are getting immediate feedback? Okay. And when I say immediate feedback, it means that are they kind of getting a perspective about what is my learning trajectory? Are they getting a perspective on the fact that, okay, they are doing well? What are the areas where they kind of need to focus more, etc.? Okay. So statistics, data driven, I would say leadership is something that NEP 2020 has been kind of pushing significantly for. Then comes the Viksit Bharat 2047 agenda. Okay. And this is again very much in tune where we are saying that, okay, whether it is competency building of teachers or it is the dream of having a kind of an online repository where children, from any strata, any background, irrespective of the fact whether they come from a great university like an IIM Ahmedabad, for example, or maybe a state university which is not great in terms of its budgets or the access that they have, will be able to access a common repository of learning material. So these books, which are very expensive and sometimes remain out of access for a lot of children, for a lot of students, research papers for that matter, when we try to, have or introduce our students to research, the research is also something that schools start pushing from grade 8 onwards significantly. By grade 10 we expect, irrespective of boards, that okay, they are using research, or undertaking research significantly. They are able to form a hypothesis, they are able to ask right questions, present the, I would say, identified data very meaningfully. This is something which is coming as a thrust from right from grade 8. Okay. And then comes the research paper presentation, for instance, which is very, very important skill set at university level today. Okay. All this requires ample reference. And when you look at, I would say platforms like Harvard Business Review, you look at, there are a lot of, online platforms which provide research papers. So when you're doing the research, it's very, very important that, okay, you have access to a variety of academic material. And, that is something which remains as a limitation. Now, this dream of the Indian government that we should make it accessible, great repository at the click of a button for each and every student belonging to any social strata or economic background, whether from an elite university or maybe from a college which is in a rural area. So somewhere the dream of Viksit Bharat, okay, in context of learning. Now, if we talk about, EdTech for ensuring equitable and inclusive education, and we know, okay, there is a problem with device shortage, poor connectivity, and affordability that we have kind of spoken about. The solutions which have been kind of proposed or have been taken so far by the government, we know about PM Vidya, One Nation One Digital Platform. I have kind of touched upon it, where they're saying that, okay, leveraging national resources for widespread educational reach, whether a teacher or student should have access to a lot of ebooks, lot of research papers, okay, so that access doesn't remain a limitation. Similarly, there are platforms like Diksha app, and you might know about Diksha app that, okay, this is an app which is multilingual and it is device agnostic. Okay, accessible learning content for diverse linguistic needs across devices. Okay, it's a very, very important move, I would say, especially in a scenario where we are looking at, ensuring that in a country like India, where people, kind of speak innumerable languages, okay, don't lag behind only because English was not their forte. So Diksha app, and the, I would say, measure taken through it is a very, very significant, I would say, move to ensure that there is no divide in terms of accessibility. And definitely, there is a move on community learning centers with digital libraries, which I've kind of touched upon again, creating physical spaces for shared digital learning resources. Okay, this, the way it is growing, it would be one of the best, is something that we can kind of imagine by 2042. Okay, for 47, sorry. The second one is the usage challenge that I had mentioned earlier, where we are saying that, okay, tech is available, but kind of underutilized. And over here, there are edtech solutions, whether we talk about Byju's or we talk about Khan Academy or any other such platform which is offering engaging curriculum aligned content. There are a lot of interactive platforms. In fact, there are platforms, which are going ahead. Khan Mingo, I should kind of, mention, which is very, very adaptive in nature. It is interactive, adaptive. It looks at what type of, so, Khan Mingo helps a child hone their learning, or I should say writing skills for that matter. This was also one of the challenges where not all schools could afford great English teachers, for instance. Okay. Writing is a very, very important competency we are very much aware of, right? Writing is not something which is required only at school grade level to pass examinations. It is required at college level. It is required at university level, whether you have to write a statement of purpose or you have to kind of present a paper, or a white paper presentation submission, or we talk about real life usage where we need to use writing either for writing emails or creating project proposals, creating concept notes, or any other kind of communication, whether for advertisements or likewise. Okay, so there's a platform which kind of provides students a personalized platform completely to ensure that students are following a kind of a very, very structured approach and process to learning writing. This is just one example that I'm taking here. So there are a lot of these interactive platforms which are kind of a gentle nudge to us to move beyond being passive consumers and being more interactive, I would say, players in that. Similarly, there are a lot of hybrid modules also, or models also. We definitely know about a lot of people who use, a combination of devices to ensure what they are learning or what the students are learning, whether these are school learners or they are adult learners for that matter, learning in universities, whether in IIT or IIMs, schools and colleges ensure that children not only consume information from one media, but going beyond it. So when they give case studies, for instance, they also want them to watch some kind of documentaries related to it. They want them to listen to some interviews, for example. They want them to present their findings in variety of manners. Okay, and as I mentioned, that these days children are presenting their findings in the form of a short documentary or a podcast, or creating a paper, which is like, I've seen students presenting newspapers, for example, to kind of sum up their understanding about a particular period or era in history. Okay, or maybe presenting their ideas through advertisements and media posters for that matter. So hybrid models would be where people or technology is being leveraged to ensure that there's a balance and children are using variety in terms of consuming and presenting both. Okay, we know about 21st century skills, we talk so much about it. And when we talk about 21st century skills, these are the learning skills, there are life skills. When I say learning skills, we talk about 21st century skills like creativity, communication, you talk about collaboration, etc. We talk about life skills, which are flips, we very popularly call it as, which is flexibility, adaptability, leadership, initiative. And the third important parameter there is digital media. or I should say, media literacy. Now, this media literacy is not only digital media, it is also technology literacy. Okay, so this particular aspect of 21st century skill actually pushes, I would say, the schools and colleges these days to ensure they are using hybrid models. And this is where the edtech solutions kind of come into play. The next part is teacher training. There are lot of platforms, including Nishtha, okay, where competency building or CPD modules are uploaded, and teachers have a liberty to kind of upgrade themselves going to these platforms. So there are definitely, private players as well. We know about platforms like Unacademy. We know about platforms like Coursera, for example, which offers some free courses, some paid courses, right? There are also platforms like Nishtha and many other coming that way, where a lot of competency development modules have been uploaded so that teachers can keep upgrading themselves from time to time. And when we want to bridge this particular digital divide, it is very, very important that teachers are kind of exploring the foray which is available. They are not only being comfortable and complacent with what they know, but they try to figure out that, okay, what next can I try? Can I use a platform like Satori, okay, which is a digital platform where I can upload my lesson plan, give assignments to my students, they submit it there and I check it, for example, or maybe use things like Padlet, which becomes like a visual board, a thinking board, where children come up and they write their thoughts, and I kind of get an opportunity to compare it. Okay, so I can always choose, and that is what the entire mission is, that the teachers should be pushed to kind of upgrade themselves in knowing about technology and not stopping there, not stopping at the level of awareness, but going beyond, trying variety in terms of presentations as well. Okay. The third one is about innovation. And when I say innovation here, there are edtech tools. We are very much aware. Schools which have schools and colleges, in fact, universities as well, who have the funds, necessary funds with them, are able to leverage, augmented reality, virtual labs, or virtual reality labs for students. It's a very, very different engagement, very, very different exposure for a child where they get a kind of a sneak peek into immersive learning. Okay. And when I say immersive learning, there was a time when, children would learn about maybe, I would say respiratory system, and there can be a scenario which is very much today using VRs, where children wear the glasses which are given to them, and with that kind of see that how respiration takes place inside. Okay. Now that understanding is way different. It is taking the learning from abstraction to making it more concrete and more immersive in nature. Okay. Now, here, a child is not expected to kind of stop at experiencing it. We would want that our students kind of start thinking, what can be the next thing? How can I make things possible? How can I put together maybe a virtual field trip for that matter? Not a very big deal, right? So we know that, okay, children are taken for field trips, but these days sometimes, and there are a lot of such cases where organizations have constraints when it comes to their budgets for field trips. If it is not possible for them to take students to an industrial unit, or maybe to a historical place, or maybe an international location, today we have this opportunity to take our students on virtual tours, okay, put together using several images, where you give a kind of a 360-degree view of what is around, and again making it very, very immersive. You feel as if you are standing there. Okay. Virtual internships for colleges, college students. This is also something which is kind of picking up now when I would say affordability becomes a barrier. Can virtual internships be something which can be kind of explored and has begun, I would say, to a great extent? Okay, NDR for scalable innovation, National Digital Education Architecture, which is basically to foster widespread tech adoption. This entire move is to ensure that schools and colleges ensure that they are not remaining passive consumers of technology. Okay, divide, a divide four, and that's about skill. We spoke about the fact that, okay, not just access but ability to use it meaningfully, availability, or I should say that, okay, the skill to leverage technology in the right manner. Coding and digital literacy in schools curriculum, NEP 2020 mandate, where it is saying that, okay, students need to learn coding. Okay, and again, the way it is evolving is way faster than what we had kind of imagined. The ICSE syllabus, for that matter, grade 10, grade 12, used to offer Java programming. Okay, now we see that with AI, you may not be required to write detailed programs. Okay, write codes for loops, for instance, to ensure that, okay, there is a kind of a platform or maybe a functionality which is in a loop, for instance, as an output. Okay, we know about Swayam, we know about Swayam Prabha, okay, all these which are for higher education skill building. Okay, accessibility tools also for disabled students. So, options like screen readers or AI transcription, or this particular, feature where if you don't see the image because you are blind, you're kind of still able to figure out what is there in the image. So those kind of features have kind of started coming in. Now, inclusion in practice, what does it look like? Okay, so rural and urban, low bandwidth offline apps like Diksha, or ensure rural students aren't left behind. This is something that I've kind of touched earlier as well. Inclusion in practice would be when students in remote places, maybe a college in Meghalaya, okay, is not struggling because of low bandwidth. Okay, we have provided equity in a manner that, okay, if at all bandwidth or internet bandwidth is being a challenge, there are other avenues for him to pursue what he wants to in terms of his learning or the experiments or the kind of assignments that he wants to take up. Similarly, the divide that comes in between rich and poor, schemes to subsidize digital devices and scholarship for online courses. These will become kind of critical for low income families, and this is something that we must consider. Universities who have funds at their disposal, and there are quite a lot who are doing it also, okay, must consider introducing schemes where they are able to offer scholarship to children who are not able to have it for themselves. Abled and disabled, again, accessibility technologies, speech to text or audiobooks, for example, tactile graphics. A very, very nice thing which was recently observed and reported by one of my colleagues on her LinkedIn post was about Savlon wipes, wet wipes, which are now blind friendly. So they also have the braille script there. Okay, so tactile graphics, for example, ensure disabled learners are also kind of included in the process. Okay, they are able to participate fully. Policy and partnership is something which will definitely matter. Some bit of it has already begun. So, government initiatives where they, pushed on Digital India when they proposed NEP, BharatNet, NDR, are these are some of the good examples where government has taken a lot of initiative in terms of giving a push to edtech platforms also, for that matter, startups who want to make educational products giving a lot of schemes. So you might have in the recent news also, this was kind of shared that okay, going ahead, startups will not have any kind of tax coming in for any 3 years that they can choose. These are all, I would say, small steps taken in the direction that we kind of promote entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship in general, yes. At the same time, a lot of FDI and a lot of investment. If you look at the budget of 2025 as well, there's a lot of money, or I should say, budget, which is allocated to fostering educational startups, okay, or I should say edtech startups to be precise. Okay, so government definitely is trying to make bold moves in this particular direction. Okay, and of course there is a lot of opportunity for private public partnership as well, where a lot of teachers are kind of trained in terms of digital skills or upskilling their existing skill sets. Similarly, tie-ups to ensure that okay, classrooms are digitized, they have access to LMSs for instance, okay, and there are definitely NGOs like Pratham run communities, etc. So there are a lot of scope in that space, and of course a lot of push as well. And as my closing thoughts for bridging the digital divide and ensuring that EdTech is utilized for inclusive and equitable learning, I would say technology is not a silver bullet. It will not by itself solve every problem in education. But if it is used wisely, it can definitely be a great equalizer. Okay, it can allow a girl in a remote tribal village to access the same lesson as a student in Mumbai. It can also allow a visually impaired learner to compete on equal terms with others. It can allow India to rise not just a few cities, but the entire nation together. This is something that I would definitely say that we should kind of, really contemplate and think about and see how, in our capacities, we can leverage, technology. So this is all from my side. Yeah. Hmm. 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 Yeah. Yes. Very true. Absolutely. Please do. Okay. So I touched upon this particular aspect when I was talking. And when we talk about use of AI, it's very, I quoted the MIT study, where it is found that it is leading to cognitive decline. So while AI can be a boon and it can be used in various ways, it's very important that we are being cautious in terms of what use are we putting it to. Okay, I'll give you a couple of examples. I spoke about cognitive decline and I said that, okay, when children are given assignments, for example, and this is not only happening in colleges, it is also happening in schools. Now grade 6 students also, for example, are smart enough to use AI to write their project reports. They know that, okay, Hindi project also can be very well written using AI. So they go and they use ChatGPT, for instance. Okay, this will be counter productive when it comes to their skill development. Okay, but can we stop students from using it? That is a very big question. As a teacher, I've given an assignment. Okay, how much can I monitor that my students in university, or for that matter PhD students also, are not completely dependent on using AI for generating their reports or their papers or their assignments or projects. Okay. So when we are looking at AI, we kind of need to bring in some kind of awareness in the first place, is something that I would say. People need to know that, okay, there are some codes defined for the use of AI. So while we know that, okay, there will be a limitation, we will not be able to block it completely. Can we use AI in a manner which helps students to think critically about what they're doing? To give you an example, how to use it when they're doing assignments. If we ask students to generate, a case study using AI, for instance, and after that in the class have them critique it on the given parameters, what is happening is, to identify that student didn't have to do a lot of work, somewhere that mental block which remains with the students, that is kind of solved. That, okay, I have to find a case study using AI. Okay, so you have given that aspect also to the students. They can very well utilize it and kind of strike a balance. But at the same time, you are not stopping at submission of a case study. You are saying, now considering these parameters, critique it. Okay, so a lot of such things can be done where teachers can bring in a lot of active thinking to the material which children are more likely to generate using AI. How much ever we try to stop it, Dr. Aishwarya, students and children, or I would say AI also, is going to be one step ahead. So there was, we know about humanized AI, for example. When plagiarism checkers started identifying that, okay, children are using AI and this particular content is machine generated, children started putting it on humanized AI so that, it looks like a human generation. Okay, so I think the nature of our assignments will have to change here. It can't stop at submission of a project, submission of a report. Okay, now we will have to tell them that, okay, you come with a report, and in the classroom, we engage at a different level altogether. Okay, yes, of course, at the same time, kind of reminders. I know it can be only a gentle reminder only, but a reminder about the fact that, okay, there have to be some kind of codes of ethics when we are using AI. Awareness about the fact that, okay, when you are generating something using AI, it can also be biased. Why it is important that, okay, you corroborate information, okay, from different AI tools also, for that matter. One. Second thing is that you ask for sources when you are generating something. You look for maybe the content which is generated by using AI, and maybe two books that I am prescribing and you're doing it in the classroom and showing it to me, for instance. A lot of such tweaks, little tweaks in the way we are approaching our assignments and using technology can maybe help teachers, and learners alike in handling this entire scenario? Okay. So again, I spoke about interactive, aspects. Today, things have gone way beyond. So, I remember when we were teaching, and these were grade 11 and 12 students for economics. We wanted to take them to industrial units, see production, happening, understand what are factors of production, for example, how things work at the ground level, what type of challenges do workers face. For commerce, we wanted them to understand what human resource and consumer, related aspects look like. A lot of those aspects. So these required frequent industry visits. And something that used to get shot down was very quickly was the frequency of these visits. Now, how much do you capture in one visit, for instance? Okay. So over here, you can very well leverage technology. Besides using it only for showcasing presentations, videos, or giving maybe a short test, we can very well use technology, to expose students to a lot of these things which we kind of have budget constraints on. These could be either a lot of simulators in the classroom, for instance. There are, platforms like FET. You have things like GeoGebra, etc., which offers you kind of an opportunity to engage at a better level where cognitively you are very, very engaged. Assessments which are kind of involving or have been, designed using GIFs, for instance. These things kind of glue children, they are like a hook to children. Okay. So those kind of things. Virtual trips I have already spoken about, So a scenario where children in a history, session at college level also for that matter, were learning only through books and what the teacher or professor was talking about, compared to that, stepping into a pyramid, which is possible today using virtual field trips, for instance. Okay. Or we are doing a STEM assignment, and over there, there's a scope of maybe leveraging, augmented reality or virtual labs also for that matter. So any such thing which is more immersive is something that would be definitely a more meaningful use of technology than just using it for, only presentations and something that reduces them to a passive consumer of technology is something that I would say. Yeah, yeah. Very, very relevant point. And here, something which definitely needs to be considered is that at no point should teachers let the students go away from referring to books. It's very, very important. And when I say so, I mean that okay, you are referring to books either which are core curriculum related, or these are reference books also, because at higher grade levels, when we talk about colleges and universities, these are not, they don't have textbooks as prescribed in school system, for example. So how can we tweak our assignment? And that is what I was talking about in the beginning, that, okay, how can we tweak our assignments in a manner where we kind of introduce an interplay? We tell them that, okay, this is a part of the textbook that I wanted to refer, translate it into maybe notes or vice versa. Okay, so these are the notes generated on this particular, aspect using AI. Okay, and now tell me which part of the book, you know, deals with this particular concept, for instance, or maybe doing a peer evaluation and things like that. A lot of such exercises would push the children to use the textbook. And once they start seeing some merit in what they were doing, they will be motivated themselves to pick it themselves. So it's very important that we ensure that students are kind of not going off habit, of referring the textbooks. That's very, very important. At the same time, we can't deny that, okay, students will make notes. They would want that, okay, they get the crux from ChatGPT or any such platform for that matter. But we need to keep gently nudging and pushing them to use both. And that could be through variety of strategies there. An interplay of both is something that I would, kind of suggest. True. Okay. So we kind of, something when we face these kind of, aspects, so kind of observations when we have, what we try to do is that first of all, we explicitly educate our students about fact, and fiction, or I should say something which can be a bias, for example, and we kind of bring in evidences of such kind of scenarios where something which is generated using AI, is not accurate, and we kind of cite examples for it and all that stuff, so that students, first of all, are made aware. You're very, very right. There is a threat, or I should say, a fear of having students believe in whatever they read. Somewhere that art of questioning, that critical mind where that particular aspect, that a particular I would say all children are born curious, whatever they would say, they would ask why, how. These are very common questions of a 5-year-old child, a 4-year-old child, for example. This innate curiosity, and this innate habit of questioning everything that you see is all the more necessary in today's world, because everything is kind of knowledge now is available at the click of a button. It's very, very important that once again we become those children who ask question why, how, why so. It's very, very important. And to ensure that it happens, one is that, okay, we would want that to happen. Second is that, okay, how do I push my children to do that in the classroom? Can I relook at my assessments? Okay. Can I say that, okay, I'm giving you a scenario and you have to maybe come out with research questions based on this? You have to come out with, what type of questions would you ask to corroborate whether this particular information is accurate or biased? Okay. What type of sites will you go to corroborate the information again? Would you remain limited to whatever reference you're getting on AI, or what type of sites will you refer? Now, here we start bringing in this mindset that, okay, when I look for information, I have to go to credible sites, not any other blog, not any other post, but something which is coming from a body or an institution which is authorized to publish it. How to ensure that, okay, what they are reading is also safe, and this is where your digital literacy and digital safety comes into play. So kind of creating assignments around that, tweaking the nature of our assignments might help in this perspective. Thank you. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Aishwarya, for having me here. It was truly a pleasure being here. Yeah. Mhm. Sure, sure. I would please let me know what type of help would you require. I would be happy to extend my support there. That would be great. Thank you so much. Jai Hind. Jai Hind. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.